At 5:42 local time, a Russian armored column made up of 22 heavy vehicles was grinding its way through thick mud in eastern Ukraine, relying completely on one thing for survival: the weather. A brutal downpour had shut down every surveillance drone in the area, both commercial and military. It created what looked like a perfect shield, a dense curtain of rain that blinded the sky above the convoy. The Russian commander believed this storm was protection, a natural cloak, a rare opportunity to move across open terrain that would normally be a guaranteed kill zone. But 6 kilometers away, hidden inside the wreckage of a shattered tree line, 3 Ukrainian drone teams weren't watching the sky at all. They were watching data, specifically a localized Doppler radar feed that had been downloaded minutes earlier through an encrypted satellite uplink. To them, the storm wasn't cover, it was a calculation, and they had already solved it. The radar revealed a precise 12-minute gap forming inside the storm system, a narrow window that would pass directly over the convoy's exact coordinates. Meanwhile, the Russian vehicles were stretched into a single-file formation along a raised dirt road, crawling at just 15 kilometers per h because of the mud. It was the worst possible formation. What looked like a coordinated armored unit had effectively turned into a slow-moving conveyor belt of targets. All the Ukrainians had to do was wait. Wait for the storm to crack open and expose the convoy, turning what the Russians believed was sanctuary into a perfectly defined 22-vehicle kill zone. Before we go further, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Then it happened. The rain didn't stop completely, but it softened into a light mist. The cloud ceiling lifted just enough. That tiny shift in atmospheric pressure and visibility was all the authorization the Ukrainian teams needed. Within 45 seconds, 18 FPV drones, heavily modified commercial quadcopters armed with high-explosive anti-tank payloads, launched from hidden positions in the brush. To avoid collisions in the still limited visibility, the operators followed a strict airspace coordination plan. Group Alpha climbed to 200 meters. Group Bravo held 150 meters. Group Charlie skimmed just 30 meters above the ground. It was essentially a 3-layer invisible highway. Drones moving at 120 kilometers per h without headlights. This separation ensured that the swarm could hit the stretched column simultaneously without interfering with each other's signals or flight paths. Each drone cost around $500, but each one carried enough destructive power to cripple a multi-million-dollar tank if it struck the right weak point. The moment those drones powered up, however, something else happened. The Russian electronic warfare system lit up. A Lear-2 electronic warfare vehicle, positioned in the center of the convoy, instantly detected the sudden spike in radio frequency emissions. It didn't need to see the drones, it just needed to hear them. By analyzing tiny differences in signal arrival times across multiple antennas, its onboard systems triangulated the exact location of the Ukrainian operators 6 kilometers away. Within seconds, those coordinates were passed to a rear artillery battery and an Orlan-30 reconnaissance drone flying high above the storm. The Orlan-30 activated its laser designator, painting the Ukrainian launch sites with an invisible infrared beam, guiding precision artillery shells already on the way. Now the Ukrainians had drones in the air, but the very signals controlling them had just marked their own position for destruction. The battlefield compressed into seconds. Russian artillery fired its first volley. While the drone swarm was still 2 kilometers away, shells were already arcing toward the Ukrainian launch sites. The operators were forced into a high-risk maneuver. Amid combat control handoff, primary operators dropped their transmitters and ran for fallback trenches. At the same moment, secondary operators positioned hundreds of meters away activated synchronized transmitters, matching the same frequency hopping pattern, and took control mid-flight. For 3-4 seconds, the drones flew completely unguided, just ballistic objects, drifting through the air. If the signal wasn't reacquired, the entire swarm would crash. But the handoff worked. The feed stabilized. Just as Russian artillery obliterated the original launch site, turning it into a crater of fire and splintered wood. The Ukrainian team survived, barely. Now they had one objective left: finish the strike. Time was running out. The weather gap was closing. The batteries were draining. They had less than 3 minutes of flight time remaining. Below, the Russian column realized what was happening. Heavy machine guns opened fire. BMPT Terminator vehicles unleashed streams of 30mm autocannon rounds into the sky. These systems were designed to counter aerial threats. But they had a flaw. Their targeting software was built to track 1 or 2 complex targets, not 18 identical drones attacking from 3 different altitudes. The system overloaded. It began rapidly switching between targets without committing to a digital panic. While the defenses hesitated, the drones struck, not at the armor, but at the weaknesses. Engine vents, Slat armor gaps, turret rings, precise, surgical hits, like using a scalpel instead of a hammer. A shaped charge hit an engine deck, sending a jet of molten metal through the engine block, igniting fuel and detonating internal ammunition. The convoy collapsed instantly. Lead and rear vehicles were disabled, trapping everything in between. Russian crews abandoned their vehicles, running into the mud, but the Ukrainians weren't finished. Mobility kills weren't enough. They needed total destruction. The remaining drones targeted open hatches. When a shaped charge detonates inside a tank, the result is catastrophic. The autoloader explodes. The turret is blown off. A 45-ton machine becomes a steel volcano. Every destroyed vehicle was permanently erased from the battlefield. Then came the most critical target, the Lear-2 electronic warfare vehicle, the system that had nearly killed the Ukrainians. It was still broadcasting, trying to jam incoming signals, but it was built for static frequencies. The Ukrainian drones were constantly shifting channels. The system couldn't keep up. One drone slipped through. It ignored the tanks and went straight for the antenna array. Impact. The system went dark. The Russian column was now blind, disconnected. In less than 8 minutes, the battle was over. Russia had committed tens of millions in armor, artillery, and electronic warfare. Ukraine used less than $25,000 in drones. The math had flipped completely. By the time Russian artillery fired again, the Ukrainians were gone, riding electric bikes into the forest, striking, recording, disappearing. Meanwhile, Russian artillery pounded empty ground because their response chain, layered with approvals and delays, couldn't keep up. Minutes mattered, and minutes were too slow. Ukraine's decentralized teams operated differently. No delays, no approvals, just detection, decision, destruction, instantly. This single engagement reveals something bigger. Modern warfare has changed. Visibility now equals vulnerability. Heavy armor no longer guarantees survival. And a $500 drone can destroy $1 million tank. The battlefield has been rewritten, not by size, not by power, but by speed, adaptability, and precision. And as the rain returned, washing over the burning wreckage, it didn't just cover destroyed steel, it buried an outdated doctrine. The era of unstoppable armored columns is over.